Okay, folks, welcome back to the Battle for Wesnoth Amateurs Cup. This is the last game, the last match of the quarterfinals. We're closing in on the end here. And so, for this last match of the third round, we have Lemon playing as the Northerners in Game 1 versus MrProgressor playing as the Undead. So, both high damage factions, both chaotic factions. So, there's probably going to be a lot of bloodshed at nighttime. They both do have pretty solid counters to each other's strongest strategies. You've got Dark Adepts putting out high range damage, plus ghouls for poisoning melee attackers on the undead side. And on the northerner side, you have crossbows with fire damage and archers with fire damage to counter ghosts, and high melee damage from cheap units to batter their way through skeletons. Plus, of course, the fire damage is also useful against the skeletons. So, let's see how we go. So, fairly broad recruit, 2 bats and 2 ghosts. High mobility from the Undead. 2 Wolf Riders from the Northerners, from Lemon. Interesting, nothing else to start out with. He's taking his time. He's doing his scouting first, and he's moving for the center immediately. So, followed up by 2 Grunts, a Naga, and a Troll. If we go to each team visibility, I don't think we've identified the enemy yet. Now we have. Okay, so now we know who is facing. We do have a Naga in the water, which will, I think, be pretty useful. And now we have our first Orcish Archer coming out. As I said, Orcish Archers versus the Undead are, generally speaking, a great bet. The only unit they can't take out is Dark Adepts and Ghouls, really. So the Wolf Riders are falling back to try and prevent that bat from stealing anything, and the crossbowman just keeps going on adventures. He is just running all over the place, hopping around to recruit units at different angles. If we pause real quick here, we can kind of see the shape of what's happening. The Undead have formed kind of this centralized blob. It looks like this Revenant might be making for the encampment over here. Although, realistically, he can hit this encampment in 1 turn, so that might be wiser, assuming he has a little bit of money in the bank. The Northerners have established a slight village advantage, because they've taken this village with Vuk over here. There exists the firepower to clear these 2 units out. It might be costly, but if I was the Undead player, unless this guy moves away, I would be strongly, strongly tempted to just hit him with the 2 Dark Adepts, eat the damage, and kill him off, and cut off Vuk, the Orcish Grunt here, so that I could start moving around the flank. We've got this bat back here looking to steal villages, but probably going to be harassed by Wolf Riders along the way. Even with a village, a bat cannot effectively fight a Wolf Rider. It would have to get incredibly lucky to win a fight like that. And he doesn't have any support. He's got units totally cutting him off. So that bat is probably a write-off. But we've got a pretty solid core of Undead units. So let's see what happens here. Alright, so the Orcish Archer did retreat, which is wise. That bat is doing pretty well so far, to be honest. Okay, moving in to cut off more scouting attacks, more probes. And yeah, the Revenant is moving over to the right-hand side to get some recruitment going. Exactly opposite the crossbowman. That poor bat. I don't know, that bat's doing shockingly well. Okay, but they've got the Wolf Rider pinned down now. He's not going anywhere. He's not really taking damage, but he's not going anywhere. And he is poisoned. A ghoul is an excellent way to deal with guys on villages. Now, this is an interesting push. He is, of course, vulnerable to the fire arrows. It's not super vulnerable, and especially during the daytime, he still wouldn't take a ton of damage, but I don't know. This strikes me as slightly risky, especially because he's on 40% defense terrain. You could easily get these Orcish Archers over here. They could probably do about 18 damage to him. Get this Grunt onto this patch of woods where he would have 50% defense. Do a little bit of damage. It looks to me like that could be quite dangerous. I mean, it would cost the Northerners units, but I think they might be able to just block MrProgressor from running for a turn and then swarm. I don't know. Probably this is perfectly safe, but it feels like if someone was inclined to gamble, they might gamble on just killing MrProgressor right now. Although, of course, he still has units to move, so... That archer, he's taking a beating, but he's not going down. Oh, yikes. And double miss from the Dark Adept. That's painful. The Northerners have now taken a pretty significant village advantage, though. They've taken 2 villages to the south. The Undead are too concentrated, and they are taking hits on their leadership. And down here, of course, this Wolf Rider is causing trouble. So, I don't know. I really, really don't know. Finally killed that archer, but at this point, it's turn 8. The Northerners have a distinct advantage to the south, and they're about to lever that advantage into taking a bunch more money advantage, which they already have very significant monetary advantage. They've lost 1 archer up there. Yeah, kills and losses have been basically dead even. Both have been very unlucky in inflicting damage so far. Although it's low amounts total, so it'll even out. But up here, I think the Northerners with their cash advantage can easily hold off a potential attack. And because the Undead are so concentrated, they don't have any way to stop this from happening, stop this raiding. Now, Undead are kind of a slow faction in general. Their only fast units are Bats, which are cheap and shitty, and Ghosts, which are expensive and fragile. And their main units are all 5 or sometimes 4 movement points in case of the Undead. I think it's all 5, actually. Except for Dark Adepts can be 6 if they're quick. But they don't really have a cavalry unit. They don't have something like a Wolf Rider or a Loyalist Cavalryman that can, like, skirmish and fight. Or even an Elvish Scout, really. So, at the moment, I would say the Undead are definitely on the downside here. We'll see if they have a way to pull out of it. They're making effective use of their tools in this fight up here. I just think they've committed too much to the fight in general. And yeah, now it's 12 to 4. 12 to 4 villages, which is yikes. He might be able to level that ghost if he's lucky. We'll see. Okay, so the Undead are, yeah, the Undead are absolutely getting their shit wrecked right now. He's starting to recruit zombies, which is never really a good sign. Generally speaking, if the Undead player is recruiting large numbers of zombies, it is a council of desperation. That ghost there is doing pretty well. Okay, they're trying to get the level from somewhere for their ghost. And they're also trying to kill the Northerner leader. But that, boy, I'm not convinced that was a good move. That seems incredibly dangerous. But yeah, the Northerners are now cleaning up the last Undead villages, and victory is basically assured. Oh, that was terrible. That was really bad. He was gambling on his units actually getting killed by the Revenant in order to open up a slot so that he could finish the kill. But so that is most definitely the game. Lemon's apologizing for the leader snipe. Like, no, don't apologize for leader snipes. If someone puts their leader in a position that you can kill it, just kill it. That's how the game works, and you have to. I think it's very much on everybody to be careful of where their leader goes. So if you look at stats there, the Northerners the Northerners, the winners here, were actually unlucky. They inflicted about 20% less damage than expected. They took 10% less damage than expected. So overall, their luck was bad during this game. That said, up here they were thinning. And this was kind of a dangerous position. Like, if the Undead had been able to hold on for a couple more turns, they might have been able to push back. And especially Lemon here, like his actual leader, was in a very precarious position. But the Undead just put their leader in a vulnerable position and got him sniped. And they didn't really have to do that, because this fight was definitely under control. Lemon had been committing less to that fight in order that he could have all these units down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units completely divorced from the fighting to take enemy villages. And as a result, he'd successfully taken almost all the enemy villages. The Undead had left 1, 2, 3, I don't even know where the fourth one is. 1, 2, 3, 4 villages. There it is. Just those 4. And if Lemon Ice had managed to hold on a couple more turns, he would have started seeing very, very significant income disparities. And he might have been able to... I mean, I think he could just have out-recruited the Undead, just retreated this guy back to here, say, and just been churning out, you know, with that income, like a couple of grunts or a grunt and an archer per turn for a little while. The Undead, meanwhile, had pretty much all of their units concentrated into this fight, I think realizing it was kind of their last hope to be able to break through and kill the Orcish crossbowmen. Down here, they'd lost all of their territories pretty much. The long term was not going to favor them, so they had to punch through and do the damage they needed to do as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, like I said, they got a little bit careless with the Revenant, got him sniped. But it was a solid game, albeit a quick one, only 10 turns. Let's hop on to the next game and see if MrProgressor can do a little bit better this time, or at least not have the bad luck of getting sniped like that. Let's see, we're going to load up game 2. And reset it there. Okay, so we have Lemon as the Rebels versus MrProgressor as the Knolgans. Interesting. Knolgan matches I always find interesting. And a big part of it is that I don't play Knolgans much. And I don't know that I'm very good with them. But we've got mostly... Okay, so for the Rebels, first term recruit, 3 Elvish fighters, a hunter, a scout, and 1 archer. Okay, fair enough. A lot of people lean very heavily on Elvish fighters because they're very versatile. They're not my absolute favorite, but I can see the arguments in favor of them. You know, they have both kinds of attacks. They're relatively high damage output. They're decent HP. You know, they're just overall solid units. Down here, the Knolgans they've got a footpad, 2 thieves, a poacher, a fighter, and a griffin rider. So a fairly fast deployment. Am I absolutely losing my mind? Who's their leader? There he is, the Trapper. Yeah, I was absolutely losing my mind, or at least my eyesight. He's so sneaky, he even hid from me. So, the Knolgans have identified the Rebels. I think the Rebels have now identified the Knolgans as well. I think they've seen some units. So, the game of cat and mouse begins. It is nighttime. The Outlaws do have an advantage at nighttime because they are chaotic, but even so, I don't think they really want to push too hard on the flanks. In the middle here, I think they can probably go in and drive that merman back without too much trouble. 2 Griffins, though, and Griffins are terribly in caves. You can see 20% defense there. Got Elvish units kind of probing around the flanks both ways, and a fairly large holding force making sure that these guys can't effectively push. The Dwarf Fighter now is very, very happy right here, where he has 60% defense in that cave hill. And the Rebels are moving aggressively to claim enemy villages and kind of put MrProgressor on the back foot, especially with this Elvish Fighter over here. Now, this Elvish Fighter has accidentally put himself in a lot of peril, because you can get a Dwarvish Thunderer over here, plus the Trapper and at least 1 Thief who will get the backstab. So he can come around to flank in any of these squares, and as long as he's behind the Elvish fighter, his damage will be doubled, which is pretty significant. Oh, the Thunderer missed. Damn. Yep, there it goes in. Goes in for the backstab. Does get 10 damage off. 2 Griffins is a pretty heavy Griffin investment. Not sure how I feel about that. Griffins don't do a ton of damage. So we've got a Shaman coming out. Down here, the fighting continues, but MrProgressor, the Trapper, is honestly taking much the worst of it. That Elvish fighter is not taking damage. Down here, though, that Dwarvish Thunderer managed to land a really solid hit. That's what Thunderers are great at. People in the open just get blasted. And to feed a little bit of experience to this Griffin Rider. In the center is where it looks like the main Elvish push is coming from. We do have couple of fighters off on the flank, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units pushing in the center. And not a whole lot anywhere else. If we pull up the full map view real quick, we can see that, yeah, there's no reinforcements over here. Almost all the Elvish units are coming straight down the middle and trying to fight their way through the water, it looks like. That Elvish Scout is going to be a problem. That Thunderer, though. Thunderer's given as well as he gets. For sure. Okay, now there are units moving off to the flank as well. One of the great strengths of the elves that you see kind of demonstrated here is that they just always get retaliation damage. Pretty much no matter what. Okay, got a nice hit on the archer there. And yeah, that Elvish Scout in the woods being a huge royal pain. This attack has all of a sudden developed. The elves have been using their mobility very well to make sure that they can kind of isolate these units and really put a lot of pressure on this flank, and they've stolen another village. So we now see Lemon with a 10 out of 16 village advantage once again. Meanwhile, MrProgressor's troops are kind of fragmented. They're scattered all over the place. They're taking a lot of retaliation damage because they're trying to fight elves on good terrain, primarily. And elves on good terrain are incredibly tanky. They don't look tanky, but you have to remember that defense values effectively act as multipliers for hit points. If you're on 50% defense, effectively, you have twice the HP against non-magical, non-marksman attacks that is displayed. So effectively, this Elvish Archer on 50% defense has 66 hit points. This Elvish Scout has more. This Elvish Scout effectively, right now, still has something like 35 or 40 hit points. Which is going to make it a real problem for these two units to try to kill him. And that Elvish Fighter is actually about to level. Okay, there he goes. Finally. Pretty massive recruit from the Knolgans, though, so they may be able to get back into the game. But they've lost a number of units and a lot of health at this point. In fact, if we check... Well, I take it back. Actually, the elves have lost much more. They've lost 3 fighters to 1 thief. They've simply outmaneuvered the Knolgans, and they've inflicted a lot of damage to a lot of units. But they haven't closed the deal on almost any of them. Interesting. I thought they'd lost more than that. Overall, the elves are being slightly luckier than the Knolgans, not by much, but by a little bit. It's the difference between it's the difference between a 54-point spread here and a 32-point spread up here, so not a whole lot. But yeah, the elves have actually lost quite a bit more than the Knolgans have so far. Okay. Knolgan defense is hardening, and it's halfway solid over there. But over on this side, it's very porous, and they are definitely struggling to handle, the terrain. The keeping of the terrain, I should say. Oof, that thief, though. But, yeah. Once again, Lemon has very, very successfully done the thing that I talk about way too much, which is he's kept in mind that Wesnoth is about villages, fundamentally. And he's taken pretty much all the money on the map. So, there's going to be a little bit of a problem. Although, that said, the dwarves are cleaning out the evil elvish invaders rapidly. They just killed 3 units that round, and that is a painful loss. But it's interesting, the Knolgans are making very heavy use of griffins. I don't think I've ever seen somebody make such heavy use of griffins as a percentage of his force. I mean, he's got 3 griffins in total right now. The Knolgans have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 units. So a full 30% of their force is just griffins. Which I think is an interesting decision. I mean, griffins have high mobility, but they don't have exceptional hit points or resistances, or even their damage is decent, but it's nothing to really, really write home about. And they cost a lot. They cost 24. So it's an interesting strategy. I don't know if it's going to work out in the long run. If I had to pick a biggest problem with the Knolgan, well, I would say the Knolgan roster in general, it's that the Knolgans struggle to do damage in the appropriate, at least in the appropriate contexts. Like, Dwarvish fighters can do damage, but Dwarvish fighters are slow and have low defenses. Nice shot. And the Outlaw units are fast and have good defenses, but can't do damage. So you have this very, very interesting kind of weird dichotomy where, as the Knolgans, it's hard for you to punish attacks, because you can't catch them. Like, the people who can fight them can't catch them, and the people who can catch them can't fight them. I've always found Knolgans very difficult to play, primarily for that reason. But hey, maybe it's just me. In any case, the Knolgans have established themselves once again. They've secured both of their flanks. They're pushing out. They've re-established parity in villages, which is critical. But it looks like the elves are coming in again. Here they go again. Trying to get that last kill to level up their scout to a slightly less useless elvish rider. That was a risky attack. Okay, so I don't think I would have made that attack with this Griffin Rider. Because, yeah, he has 50% defense, but he's within range of both this Merman Hunter and this Elvish Archer, neither of which he can punish. So they could, if they want to, they can just move over here and lob ranged attacks at him. All he can do is take it and then run, and he'll probably be badly injured. He may even die. Odds of him dying aren't fantastic, but actually they go up if this Elvish Scout also comes over. You can move the Merman Hunter out, throw, Archer over here, shoot, Elvish Scout back here, assassinate. That's a lot of money to lose. Griffin Riders are expensive. Yep. Well, nope. Oh, he's bringing in his leader. Risky play, but I respect the chutzpah. Okay, he is bringing in the counter to the dwarves on the hills. He's deployed the mages. So, if we look at the situation now in the middle here, Kizu is trapped. The only way he's gonna get out of this is if he manages to kill someone and level. In order to do that, basically one of his compatriots needs to get real lucky and land both hits on this Elvish Archer. I think that's the only way to do it. And then he can move down here, attack the Elvish Archer, and if he gets one hit, then he'll kill her and be able to level up. And the Elves are pretty much just falling back into a defensive position, except over here on the right. Oh my god, it's another... Wow. Yeah. That's kind of what I was afraid was going to happen. It's always sad to see. That Thunderer is just not doing the job. Just not getting the job done. The Canalgans are advancing on the left, but on the right they're being pushed back. I really don't think I would have invested 100 gold in 4 Griffin Riders. I feel like that's excessive. Like, a Griffin Rider, maybe 2 Griffin Riders. Yes, I could see it. But 4? God, that's... oof. It's like 4 Griffin Riders or 6 other units, you know? And I think a lot of the time 6 other units is more valuable. Alright. Oh, well, nice assassination right there. That is what Griffin Riders are good at. And all he needs now is one more kill and he'll actually get one leveled. But yeah, he's not gonna get it. I don't think. Oh, so close though. So close. But the Elves are fighting in a very effective and defensive manner, concentrating on one unit at a time, wiping it out before they move on to the next, bringing up a steady stream of reinforcements in that kind of daggered line that prevents anybody from getting too badly ganged up on, unless they're very, very unlucky. Nice shot with the Thunderer. The Thunderer's close to leveling. Of course, the Canalgans have had like 3 or 4 units now close to leveling and haven't quite made it any of those times. If we pause real quick here, since it is turn 18, the game's gone on for a little while. We can see that the action has moved back to the flanks. The majority of the Elven force is over on the left, but they have a pretty significant detachment on the right. The Canalgans seem to be having trouble matching. They've got a decent little fighting group over here. Over here, they're starting to look a bit thin, especially because their 5 units include their commander, also an Ulfsirker, which is a specialist tool, and 2 Griffin Riders, which are just... If you're going to be standing in a line and fighting, you want the Dwarvish Fighter. These guys are really only good for swinging around, flanking maneuvers, and sniping wounded units, which is valuable, but not something you need a ton of them for. In the center, Polu stands victorious. There is a thief trying to prevent him from stealing any villages, but other than that, the center lake is abandoned. The fighting has moved outside. Oof. Lemon is using Elvish Shamans very, very well, slowing down units to prevent much damage coming back at them. Really doing quite a decent job. And now we have the irony of elves being killed through massed archery. Though in this case, the elves were on the plains, which kind of makes sense of it. That poor brave Thunderer. My god, what he's just lived through. So, on both sides, the dwarves are down by 1 village, which isn't a ton. They only have 8 units, though. And a part of that is that their losses have all kind of come in rapid succession here. Like, they've lost a lot of units. So have the elves. The elves have also lost a lot of units. Luck is pretty much evened out. The elves are coming off slightly worse in terms of the number of units and the amount of gold lost. But positionally, they are very much in the ascendant again. Although they will have to push pretty hard in order to make that happen. This Dwarvish Thunderer, however, is going to be a real problem because if they attack him 3 times without killing him, he'll level up anyway and heal all of his damage. So they have to kill him in 2 rounds of attacks, or 3. But to be safe, probably going to plan on 2, or hope for 2. That said, I'm not sure that it's actually going to happen because there's a lot of support units close enough to intervene. I think this might end up being the first level for the Knolkans. Nope, I'm sorry, that might end up being the second level for the Knolkans. The first has been taken. Still though, that was always going to be a bad fight. That level 2 is doomed, and these units have for some reason pulled back. So the elves are just moving right back in again. And this guy is going to get absolutely murdered. Yep, murdered in order to feed an elvish advancement to a hero. Good choice. At this point, it's just going to be raw damage that wins it for the elves. MrProgressor doesn't have the resources to build up and destroy them again. He can't repel this latest attack. Yeah, the elves just closing in on both sides now. It's no longer winnable. Albeit, like, absent a miraculous assassination. We've got multiple Ulfs on the field, though, which is interesting. As you can see, that one's actually having some trouble. Or at least it's taking damage. Okay. Yeah, this is just a suicide charge at this point. But he did level. And another Griffin Rider comes out. And, uh-oh, MrProgressor has been caught in shallow water. That's doom. That's all kinds of bad. Yeah, I get the feeling that at this point MrProgressor was just kind of tired of the game, to be honest. His recruitment decisions are... Well, I'll talk about it in a minute as the game ends here. I can respect the attempt to assassinate Lemon Ice, but it wasn't statistically probably gonna work. He might push on to try it, though. Nope, he's going for an archer. He's getting some last-minute kills in, but... overall, futile, I would say. Yeah. Now it's just a game of hunt down the enemy leader. I don't know why this Thunderer is moving. There's nowhere to go, dude. Just fight. Come and die in whatever way seems best to you. And try to level before that happens. Okay, so I'll be honest. I think most of what lost this battle was MrProgressor's recruitment choices. That many Griffins is too many Griffins. They're too expensive. They don't do damage commensurate with their cost. They don't have HP commensurate with their cost. They're not worth what you pay for them as more than like 1 or maybe 2 for scouting purposes and flanking. 1 or 2 for scouting and flanking, yeah, sure, absolutely. Use them to beef up your footpads and stuff. But for like general purpose combat use, you have better, more efficient options. The Elvish fighters acquitted themselves pretty well. Most of the Thunderers flopped, but this one actually did quite a decent job. Final statistics, basically dead heat statistically, which is always what I like to see. Also a dead heat in terms of losses, but since the losses include 4 Griffin Riders, losses for the dwarves in terms of money were inflated. In terms of the Knolgan Alliance, I should say, because they're not all dwarves. But yeah, and then leveling that Trapper up here in this doomed fight where he was immediately surrounded and killed was of course a waste. But these things happen sometimes. Mainly, I would just say, in terms of your losses, Dwarvish fighters and possibly a Dwarvish Guardian or two might have helped, like more of these guys. And fewer of these guys. Because if you take out 2 Griffin Riders, that's 48 gold. You can spend that on 3 or sometimes 4 of other units. And generally speaking, 3 or 4 units will do you more good, especially when you're having trouble economically, than 2 fast but fragile units. But in any case, it was a great game. Very, very well played to Lemon. He very effectively took the lead in both games, primarily due to focusing intensely on the terrain and the village placement and making sure that anytime it was possible he had an advantage in taking villages away. He also split up MrProgressor's forces pretty effectively and concentrated his own using his superior elvish speed to destroy one part at a time, kind of going back and forth landing blows. And successfully managed to carry out the snipe, albeit by that time he was really close to just an outright conquest victory anyway. But thank you all so much for watching. That is the end of round 3. We're moving on to the semi-finals, and we know that Lemon will advance. And you'll see what those semi-final brackets are in the next episode. So thank you very much again for watching, and I'll see you next time.